Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh. In this video we're going to be taking a look at Overwatch Halloween from a lore perspective. What can we learn, what can't we, can we take it as canon, or is it just all for fun? I'm going to be looking at the comic Junkenstein, the in-game interactions between heroes in the Brawl, Junkenstein's revenge, and a bunch more as well. Firstly, a quick sum up of the Junkenstein comic story. Now, the Overwatch team are celebrating Halloween. If this is canon, like an actual part of the story, then it's probably set sometime during the later stages of the Golden Age, the 20 years that Overwatch was active after the first Omnic Crisis. A little bit more on that later. We see a variety of the crew having a great time before Reinhardt sits them all down to tell them a ghost story. Starring some strangely familiar characters, he tells the tale of Dr Jameson, a slighted inventor who vows to prove his worth to the lord and inhabitants of the town that he lives in, Aldersbrunn. He's unable to create life until he runs into a witch and her companion who help him unleash his revenge with the secret of life. As Reinhardt gets to the story's peak, a sinister knocking at the door starts, and I'll let you read the end if you haven't seen it already. Go check out the motion comic over on Madefire or comic.playoverwatch.com for all Overwatch comics released so far and in future. I get asked that question a lot, so you should always bookmark those. Here's what we kind of learned, or could speculate that we've learned from the comic. First debate, is this comic lore or not? Well, I wouldn't get too hung up on it. Firstly, as a lot of comics do an out-of-universe or a story seasonal special, to have fun around seasons and special occasions without having to be bound to being in the story. But for fun and a good old story and lore debate, let's have a look at a few interesting things in the comic that could potentially be tied into the story. First things first, the photo from Recall. Now, a lot of people spotted the nice touch of Mercy and Torb in this scene having a photo taken of them by Ana. This photo is seemingly the one that we see Winston take a look at in Recall over his computer monitor, and it's also in the dropships of the King of the Hill maps. There's a few people are missing from this party that we see in other photos. Take Tracer, Winston and Genji for example. There have been quite a few wild theories on Reddit and other places about when this party, if it is canon, is in the actual timeline. Two main ones of these, as a very quick summary, is that maybe this is earlier in Overwatch's post-Omnic Crisis existence, and then secondly, if the photo has been sent to Winston, is it to our friendly gorilla scientist, or was it originally addressed to perhaps his mentor, Harold Winston, rather than Winston the gorilla? Based off that, people are wondering if Winston is even in Overwatch at this point. So to be very clear before I continue, we can't nail down exactly when this is in the timeline if it is official lore, as with most things in Overwatch, and we can't judge from the presence or absence of people either. I think that's important to mention. I'd be more inclined to estimate it in the mid to late period of Overwatch's golden age of 20 years, and here's a few quick reasons why. Firstly, Mercy. Now, it's been confirmed by Michael Chu, the story chief for Overwatch, on the Overwatch forums that although Mercy is, quote, very intelligent and completed her schooling more rapidly than usual, I would say maybe think a Tony Stark level of genius, she didn't join Overwatch at the age of 17. Now that's kind of important, given that Overwatch's HQ in Switzerland went boom 6 years before present day in the story, and the organisation, I'd say, presumably was dissolved in fairly short order after that. Mercy's 37, as is McCree, making her and McCree 31 at that time. Overwatch kept the world safe for 20 years after the Omnic Crisis. Mercy was 11 at the time it ended. So, depends to a degree how old you think Mercy is in this comic as to when you think this could be set. Now, Mercy could well have, sadly as an orphan, somehow come into contact with Overwatch before joining, and if you really thought that this was earlier on in Overwatch's 20 years, this is really the only kind of way you could explain her presence in this image. I personally think this is probably set in the later stages of Overwatch's 20 years, when Mercy's joined the organisation already as head of medical research. Trace and Winston, granted they're not there, but they could well be off, busy, on mission somewhere or something else. That's potentially the same for Genji too, although of course he may have left by this point depending on whether Overwatch has completed dismantling the Shimada clan. We have no timings. Well, what we do know, McCree is here. He hasn't left Overwatch yet. He leaves Overwatch to avoid the infighting within it, and Blackwatch, as told by his bio on the Overwatch website, McCree, as I mentioned, is also 37 in present day, so he's the same age as Mercy and has the same challenges. When was he recruited to Overwatch? From the Deadlock gang in the sting operation that he was picked up in. That'll be an interesting tale to tell. Now also note that if you have a look at McCree, he still has both hands and arms, not his prosthesis that we see in the present day, so there is a story as to how McCree lost his arm too. The only other photo that we see McCree in the Ana origin video, he still has both of his arms as well. Ana, of course, is here. Remember, she served well into her 50s, according to her bio on the website, before her disappearance in the events of her comic Legacy. So this comic, we can certainly say that it's before her fateful mission and injury at the hands of Widowmaker. So these events probably aren't right at the end of Overwatch's existence, but that's as close as we can get. Another thing from this comic, well, we actually see the monster's face, and some people have taken that to say and wonder if this is Roadhog's actual face. Any pictures we see of Roadhog, he wears a mask, so we don't actually know there's anything filling that mask underneath. This is a comic, it's a fantasy story, the monster's made up from parts of course in typical Frankenstein's monster fashion. This monster does actually have a pig-style snout. Maybe it's his face, maybe not. Maybe Roadhog will have a face reveal in future, like Reaper already has to Anna, but not to us of course, the audience, in Anna's Old Soldiers comic. I wonder what Reaper's face would look like now. Finally, there's a couple of cool interactions in Junkenstein's Revenge, the brawl that we have for Halloween that's co-op against the Zomniks, which is so much fun. Now remember, voice lines in game in Overwatch are delivered in an out-of-lore setting, but they can reflect on canon and real lore events. So there were two particularly cool ones that I wanted to pull out. One of them is between Anna and Hansa.
I once met a man who could summon a dragon as you do.
So Anna obviously is recalling here meeting Genji in Overwatch, and at this stage, maybe we could date this, say, before Dragons. Hanzo does not know at this stage that Genji is still alive. Kind of interesting touch. Also, I quite like this response from Soldier 76.
I don't stay in one place for too long. Came from a town called Bloomington, Indiana.
Now, we obviously know that Soldier 76 was from Indiana, from one of the early Overwatch blogs. It's also in the visual source art book from the collector's edition, but the Bloomington piece is new. I've already had a bunch of you guys in my Halloween interactions video talking about Bloomington in Indiana, so it's good to know where one of our heroes is from. To wrap it all up, loving Halloween as an event, the comic's a load of fun, as is Junkenstein's Revenge. I treat the Brawl interactions as an interesting reflection on potential canon lore, but perhaps in a non-canon context, just like the normal voice lines in game. And the comic, it could be canon, but I wouldn't be too upset if it's not. Maybe we'll find out in future. If you're watching in 2016 October, Blizzard have kindly given me a few goodie bags to give away for Halloween, so if you'd like a chance of winning this mask, stickers and a few other fun small bits as well, then do keep an eye on my Twitter at FailcraftCasts and perhaps sub to the channel for more details on how to get involved in the coming days. Cheers for tuning in. How did you enjoy the comic? How are you enjoying the Brawl? Do let me know in the comments below. And for more Overwatch lore, story, news and other things as well, everything to do with Overwatch, have a look at my playlists here. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.